This caretaker is too much. He even took the paralyzed boss for a massage when the boss was relaxing and enjoying himself. He even gave the boss a cigarette to test if the boss's legs could feel. He even used hot water to test. Have you played enough? Really, he didn't feel anything. When feeding the boss, he was distracted by the beautiful assistant, hey, and forgot that the boss was paralyzed. When the phone rang, he habitually handed the phone to the boss. Oh, I forgot, shaved the boss's beard, and ended up shaving like this. And this, he even took the boss out to play with snow, but the boss only got beaten up. When he took the boss out for a walk, he pushed the wheelchair like a sled, having so much fun that he seemed to fly high. And what no one expected was that not only was he unreliable, but he was also a recently released prisoner. The boss's friends were very confused, not understanding why the boss would hire someone like that when Philip started looking for a caregiver. There were countless candidates for the interview. Most of them were white people with professional skills, and Riz, who had just been released from prison, stood out among them. But Riz seemed to have a very arrogant way of interviewing. He didn't wait in line, but went straight into the room and slammed a piece of paper on the table. What's the matter? Sign here for me. Philip asked and found out that he didn't come to find a job, but to collect signatures from employers who didn't hire him. As long as he had 3 signatures, he would receive unemployment benefits. Philip immediately felt interested in Riz. He asked, "Don't you have any other goals in life?" There was something that attracted me before. Riz's straightforwardness made Philip's tightly knitted eyebrows melt away, facing this humorous black man. Philip did not immediately refuse, but told him to come back tomorrow. He did not need to stand up to see me off. Then he left. Riz wandered the streets, not returning home for half a year. His heart was filled with uncertainty. Growing up in a black family, the future was uncertain. Life was even more difficult, seeing his siblings crowded together to find a table. There were times when he couldn't help but feel frustrated. He wanted to take a hot bath, but his younger siblings kept him awake. All the burden of the house fell on his mother. He gave her a gift, an egg burger. It was something he got from the interview at Philip's house. For her son who had no news for half a year, his mother felt completely disappointed. "You think this is a hotel? I don't think you will come back. Pack up and get out of here. Haven't I made it clear? Get out, get out." His mother was already feeling frustrated with his distant state. Chris became homeless, only able to rely on some indecent friends to share his meager dinner. Although the city was full of tall buildings, there was no corner where he could safely stay. He boarded the subway, looked out the window, and did not know where his next destination would be. He arrived at the luxury residential area in the city center, originally intending to complete the procedures and leave, but was unexpectedly taken on a tour of the entire villa by the butler. He was also assigned a private room, although he was not very interested in this job. But when he entered the bathroom, he saw the luxurious bathtub of his dreams, and the attractive conditions of this job made it impossible for him to refuse. Philip decided to give him a 1-month trial, but he was not sure how long this black employee could last. The reason Philip kept Chris was because his indifferent attitude, on the contrary, gave a disabled person like him respect. The caretaker explained carefully, but Chris had long since fallen asleep. The first time he tried to put Philip in a wheelchair, he almost knocked his head off. The hardest thing for him to accept was that he had to put on Philip's socks to promote blood circulation. Chris was extremely reluctant to do this, which was something I felt I would never do. In all honesty, I refuse to wear these things. We are men, absolutely not. However, what annoyed him the most was that his job also involved helping Philip go to the toilet. This had reached his limit. He immediately protested to the caregiver. Although his daily work seemed to be neglected, Philip was not dissatisfied with Chris. He was physically and mentally exhausted while having dinner on the terrace. A young couple suddenly appeared. The girl was at an age where she was easily tested and was getting more and more rebellious, even bringing her boyfriend home. Chris was forced to lecture Philip on his behalf. "Take that and go somewhere else. Here we go. Your dad hired him. Okay, I have a name." Chris handles things simply and directly. While sorting through Philip's mail, he found a photo of a beautiful girl. Without hesitation, he put it in his personal file. Whether Philip saw the photo or not is unclear, but at least Chris was pleased with it. "Philip needs a wheelchair every day. I won't go in, and I won't take him on a horse. What about this one? This one's not suitable." Chris doesn't care. He pulled the cover over the Maserati beside him. Oh my, how touching. With the roar of the engine, they were both extremely excited. He stepped on the gas, making another beautiful turn. This turn even made the butler step out, because Philip rarely went out. The neighbor often parks his car in front of his house. The neighbor often parks his car here. He considers this a spot. It'll be fine. Chris has been out in the world for years. His hot temper can't handle things like that. "How is it?" "Sorry. Would you like another cup of coffee?" "No parking here." Read it out loud. "No parking here." "Good job. Remember what you just read me and get out." After handling the matter quickly, the two of them went to the art exhibition. Facing the works in front of him, Philip showed great interest. The blood-red stains on the white cloth made him feel many emotions. But Chris didn't understand art. He just wanted to know how much the painting was worth. A splatter of paint on the white paper. How much is this toy? 30,000 euros. Let me go check it out. When Chris learned that this nosebleed was worth 30,000 euros, he immediately jumped closer. It's nonsense. You can't buy this washing up junk. There's a reason for that. The nosebleed cost 30,000 euros. He claimed that if Philip gave him 50 euros, he could create many more beautiful works on the spot. Philip did not want to waste time explaining. He had to change the subject by giving Chris a candy, giving me one, and then eating it. Chris often didn't know how to keep his temper. Even when talking to Philip, he didn't hesitate to joke around. But that made Philip feel comfortable. The price was wrong. I told you, the price of this painting is 41,500 euros. I'll buy it. Friends reminded Philip that Chris had just been released from prison and had a tendency to violence. People from the slums often lack integrity. However, Philip and Chris' relationship was very harmonious. Because of Philip's status and reputation, others treated him with great respect, especially since he was paralyzed. But when he was with Chris, Philip always smiled happily, seemingly forgetting his condition for a moment. This sincere friendship was something Philip had never experienced even when he was healthy. Chris also introduced his fancy bathtub to the female secretary he liked and sincerely invited her to take a bath together. The female secretary also joked with him, "Then I will go in, take off my clothes first. Look at you, so beautiful, I like you. Come on, let me take it off first. What are you doing? Where are you going?" You agreed. Just a quick shower. What are you looking at? And at dinner, Chris used his beeper to listen in on Philip's letters to Eleanor. From what the butler had told him, they had been exchanging letters for 6 months without meeting. Chris woke up in the middle of the night. A painful private voice rang out from the pager, and he realized Philip was suffering. He went to Philip's side. The side effects of the medicine made Philip endure silently at night. Chris had no choice but to take a towel to wipe Philip's sweat, staying by his side wholeheartedly. Until Philip felt better. To avoid a similar situation from happening again, Chris decided to take Philip out for a walk. The street at 4 a.m. was very quiet. Philip explained to Chris that what he was experiencing was called phantom pain, like a cold piece of beef thrown into a hot pan of oil to fry, when the physical pain was gone. Then the mental pain would come. Chris asked with concern if there was any other way to reduce this suffering. Just then 2 young girls passed by. Philip rarely smiled. Chris immediately understood what Philip meant. Seeing Philip start to convulse again, Chris let him take a puff of his cigarette, then wandered the streets with him. This was a scene that Philip had never dared to imagine since he became paralyzed. With Chris's company, he felt like he had regained the feeling of the past, like his limbs were whole again. That night, the two of them sat and talked. Philip told Chris about his world of worries. He used to have a beautiful wife. They loved each other very much. But after his wife had 5 miscarriages, they finally decided to adopt a baby girl, to ease the pain inside, to comfort the pain in their souls. They loved to buy dangerous skydiving, unfortunately in an accident. He lost his beloved wife forever, and he himself was disabled for life. And to this day, he still cannot overcome that pain. For him, true disability is not sitting in a wheelchair, but living in a world without her. Chris thought that if that happened to him, he would probably choose suicide, but Philip had similar thoughts. It is very difficult for a disabled person like me to commit suicide. That's right, 2 completely different souls merged together at this moment. Philip told Chris that his probationary period was over. Could I be hired? Yes, you have to hire me. Give me back the Farburger egg first, right? Eggs. Farburger eggs were souvenirs that Philip's wife gave him every year, never stopping. There were 25 of them so far. Although Chris didn't want to admit it, he no longer had the face to face Philip, taking on the main task of finding the Farburger egg. He asked his sister to go home and help him find the egg, but she didn't find it, and instead learned the alarming news that their younger brother was arrested by the police for lying. Not wanting his mother to worry, he gritted his teeth and went to bail his younger brother out, but his younger brother still refused to change his ways and went out with bad friends on the street. After that night's conversation, the relationship between Chris and Philip became closer, and now he didn't need to eavesdrop on their messages to know how their relationship was developing. Even though they had been exchanging letters for half a year, Chris realized that Philip had no intention of going further. This pure love was something Chris could not understand. In his eyes, no matter how many beautiful poems he wrote, it could not compare to meeting face to face. Philip had never thought that he would become like this now. Of course, he did not have the capital to scold others. Even so, Philip still told his secretary to continue writing letters. To help Philip take the first step, he picked up the letter from before and found his pen pal's phone number in it. Philip didn't really want to call, but he was hesitant. He wasn't ready to start a new relationship yet, but the straightforward Chris didn't think much about it. So Philip opened the door to a new world. He communicated with his pen pal all the time. If it weren't for Chris, he probably would never have been able to muster up the courage to take that important first step. But Chris knew very well that the fact that he could communicate with Philip through letters for 6 months was enough to prove that this pen pal had feelings for him. Obviously, that person doesn't care whether he's in a wheelchair or not. Other men drink and hit women. Obviously, he's not like that. Because Chris and Philip grew up in different social classes, it makes them have different views on things. For example, Philip likes to enjoy high drama performances. But Chris thought that these were just a funny comedy. This guy looks so disgusting. After the comedy ended, Chris carefully picked out a photo that didn't show the wheelchair clearly and put it in the letter. Although Philip seemed to agree on the surface, he still kept it and changed it to a photo before he had an accident that night. At this time, Chris was working on a project, but was suddenly interrupted by Philip's daughter, Elisa, barging into the room. Giving me a why. Don't you know how to knock? Chris saw the shadow of his younger brother on Elisa. He didn't want to see Philip's daughter go astray. So he angrily went to Philip to reason. Chris suddenly barged in, causing the housekeeper to hastily stuff the photo of the wheelchair into Philip's resume. You have to teach her a lesson, otherwise I will deal with her for you. Calm down. I can't calm down here. I am your henchman, right? That's right, I want to be your henchman. Turn her off because you can only use your wheelchair to knock her down. Isn't that a big deal? Yvonne, tell me, does she really need to be taught a lesson just a little? She's only 16 years old, and she's already wearing that kind of makeup, and she's constantly kissing a brat, but none of this has anything to do with me. What gives me a headache is her arrogant attitude, and the way she talks to you and me. She's not respectful at all. Treat us like dogs, just say the word. I will teach it a lesson, I know. I will talk to her. You better think of a way to teach it. I don't know when to start. Griff seemed to have discovered the truth of life. After participating in that art exhibition, he bought a lot of paints and started his artistic path. Now he was gradually getting used to this completely new way of life. Except for the master-servant relationship, they were more like a pair of old friends who had forgotten each other for a long time. In the end, the shit-cleaning job still fell on him. Griff even took Philip out to play in the snow, but Philip could only passively admit the attack. He did not see Philip as a cripple. Of course, he would not see him as a person either. Then even Griff raced with Philip, and it was inconvenient to act because Philip's speed was too slow. Griff then found someone to install a motor on his wheelchair, instantly making the wheelchair fly up. Philip never expected that sitting in a wheelchair could also feel the excitement of speed. In addition, Griff specially took Philip for a massage so that he could truly relax after so many years under Griff's suffering. Philip also severely criticized his daughter. You have to respect the people around you, otherwise I won't let you go. Understand? Let you go. No, you have to wait for me to drive the wheelchair and kick you away before you will listen. Good job, he did it at Philip's birthday party. There were many guests attending, but in Philip's eyes, these people were just famous people who thought they were better than others. Gathered together to pretend, Griff felt he couldn't bear it anymore. He decided to go downstairs for a walk, but he was surprised to find Philip's daughter Elisa sitting alone on the bed sobbing. What are you doing? Why don't you come downstairs to the party? Stay away from me. What's wrong with you? Uncle, get out of the way. Seeing the medicine boxes all flowing from the housekeeper's place on the bed. Do you want to drink this yourself? Are you serious? Have you been constipated by me for 3 months? Uncle, get out of the way. Facing Griff's sarcasm, Elisa finally told the truth. Not only was she dumped by her boyfriend, but he also had an affair with another girl, and even humiliated her as a slut. She originally wanted to pay Griff to teach him a lesson. But Griff felt that she was thinking she was too cheap. Telling him to go talk to that brat. Are you paying me? What do you think I am? Please, how much is it? You idiot. At the birthday party, Philip took this opportunity to find his lawyer friend. After a while of Philip's confiding, this friend finally bought Griff's work for $1,100 for the curator who diligently prepared a celebration every year. He had long felt disgusted, as if these people came to check on him every year. After the party ended, Philip asked the music team to stay and play a song for him, while Griff, who was sitting next to him, could only continue to endure this classical music baptism. Is this Tom and Jerry? Tom and Jerry, I really can't stand it, save me. This masterpiece, after Philip's private celebration, Griff directly displayed it. He heated up the atmosphere. Everyone was infected by his enthusiasm and rushed to join this happy group. Looking at the close friends in front of him, for Philip, this was definitely an unforgettable birthday. I came, Griff arranged for him. Ben took out the reply letter from his pen pal. The thing worth mentioning in the letter besides the photo was another piece of paper. The pen pal said that he would be in Bali next week and hoped to meet him. Griff was very happy about this, so Ben placed the photo on his bedside table. After the two of them wished each other good night, The smile on Philip's face gradually disappeared, because he knew clearly that the pen pal he saw was him in the past. The day before the appointment, Griff had meticulously prepared it for him, but in the end, he asked the butler to accompany him. Taking advantage of his free time, Griff quietly arrived at the school gate. Stopping Elisa's boyfriend, facing this tall and fierce black man, the little brat immediately became terrified. "Go quickly, get a hair clip." The butler took Philip to the restaurant that had been arranged. But Philip's heart was a little tense. "I want a glass of whiskey." Griff went downstairs to where his mother worked. Looking at that busy figure, his heart was extremely complicated. He waited until nightfall. His mother did it, but he still didn't have the courage to go up and meet her. At the same time, Philip was sitting in the restaurant drinking glass after glass, because the appointment time was approaching. At this moment, Griff received a call from Philip. He knew very well that Philip wanted to avoid this meeting. Both of them had their own feelings that they did not want to face. This weak emotion made them feel a sense of resonance. The moment Philip stepped out of the door, two gently falling leaves met in the middle of nowhere, then flew away with the wind, never turning back. Afterwards, Philip took Griff onto the private plane, starting a journey that belonged to the two of them alone. On the way, Philip took out the money he received from selling flowers and gave it to Griff. "With persistent efforts, I sold my first painting for 11,000. "Oh my God, what's going on?" "It's okay. Just a hole in the fuselage. We can't escape. Tell me the truth. What the hell is going on?" "Nice to meet you." "Not happy at all. He's lived enough, but I haven't." The two of them put aside their previous low mood. They changed cars and finally arrived at the location. That was where he and his wife had the accident. Philip hoped to experience the feeling of flying in the sky again. He wanted to give up his previous fear, but when he saw Griff's face full of resistance, he still insisted on Griff putting on his protective gear. Facing this sudden challenge and Griff being scared to the point of screaming, "I don't want it. My rope, it's falling down. Oh my God, I'm flying. It's so scary." The beautiful scene entered his eyes. He never thought he would stand at such a height. Facing the unknown fear, the fear in his heart was gradually replaced by joy. The power of the wind blew away all his timidity. The feeling of flying called out to the courage and excitement deep within him. In that moment, he was no longer a dreamy thug, but a brave warrior who dared to break through the limits of life. Although Philip's body was locked in a wheelchair, his soul was liberated in this boundless blue sky. He had lost his ability to act for a long time, and now he seemed to have returned to himself. Fearing nothing, the pressure and pain in his heart seemed to have disappeared. When he returned home that night, Griff was surprised to find his younger brother had come to his door, and there were obvious bruises on his face. His younger brother was still in his prime. He always wanted to use some actions to prove himself, but ended up being taken advantage of by the underworld, and became arrogant. But he refused to admit his mistake. For Griff, Philip's place was where he escaped from his troubles in reality. But the appearance of his younger brother forced him to face reality and shoulder the responsibility of an older brother. So he went out of the room, called his younger sister, and repeatedly told her not to tell their mother about this. Philip, who was listening to the conversation, suddenly realized that although he and Griff got along well, they were people from two different worlds. If Griff chose to continue working here, he would have to temporarily abandon his family responsibilities. However, this young man, who seemed strong on the outside, had finally opened up tonight and shown his weak side. His family was actually very complicated. He was not his mother's biological son. After his adoptive father passed away, his adoptive mother remarried many times and gave birth to many younger brothers and sisters. Now she was the sole breadwinner of the family. There were many immature children who needed care. This time his younger brother came to him, and was one of them. Philip understood that Griff's future would be full of challenges. As the eldest son in the family, Griff not only had to shoulder the responsibility of taking care of the family, but also had to try to guide the children who might have gone astray back to the right path. "I think it's time for us to go our separate ways. You can't push wheelchairs for the disabled all your life. You've paid a lot." He deserved unemployment benefits. From that moment on, things started to change. Alyssa's boyfriend also gradually became better. After Griff taught him, he not only fixed his hairstyle, but also brought bread every day. When Griff left, the secretary he had been pursuing for a long time, but had yet to win over, also came to English. "I know she was sad, but be strong. It's okay because I'm not alone. This is Frederick." Outside the door, there's another line of nursing assistant applicants. The housekeeper also came specially to say goodbye. Before leaving, she returned Griff's resume. Griff ended this nursing job. Everyone came to say goodbye to him as he left, but Philip still did not appear. Watching Griff's back as he left, Philip felt an indescribable sense of loss. He had not only lost a devoted nurse, but also a confidant and mentor. For Philip, Sending Griff away meant returning to his old life. The world was isolated, as the neighbors parked their cars in the same place. This time, he chose to advise with kindness, instead of reacting harshly as before. Under Philip's influence, he was no longer as rude and impulsive as before, but became more mature and calm. When he opened the file, a photo of Philip sitting in a wheelchair appeared before his eyes. Griff immediately understood that Philip had quietly changed the photo that night. He chose to avoid it, because he did not have the courage to face his inner self. The housekeeper gave him this photo, because she knew clearly after several months of contact. Perhaps only Griff, this seemingly unreliable person, could truly enter the depths of Philip's soul. Griff led his younger brother through the bustling crowd. When he arrived at the train station to pick up his mother from work, he took the bag from her hand. That also helped to lighten the burden on his shoulders. He reintegrated into his family, helping his brother resolve conflicts on the street. The groups he had once belonged to no longer suited him. Life was slowly getting back on track. Under Philip's influence, he became more skillful in handling relationships. His flexibility and natural sense of humor helped him stand out in interviews. The lazy Griff was gone, replaced by a reliable delivery driver. Mature and humorous, Philip also found a new nurse. The new nurse was professional and serious, completely meeting the standards of a modern nurse. For Philip, this nurse was no problem, but he lacked Griff's liveliness. Without Griff's companionship, Philip became depressed, losing the joy of the previous days. One night, when the pain was unbearable, the nurse came to check on him, but Philip told him to go away. His condition was getting worse and worse. The butler had no choice but to invite Griff back. If he had never met Griff, had never experienced the life of a normal person, he might have been able to accept the present. But after escaping the darkness, he fell into the abyss again. Meeting him after a long time is still like the first time. "What's wrong, old man? What's wrong with your daughter-in-law? Seppuku makeup? It just so happens that I came here today to help Philip get out of his slump." He decided to drive the Maserati to wait for him to go for a walk. Seeing Philip's sad face, he stepped on the gas and started speeding through the streets of Paris, preparing for a dangerous drive. However, it wasn't long before their speeding behavior attracted the attention of the police. "Philip, I'll give you 100 euros. I want to get rid of them." Philip Locke. They moved freely in the Paris night. Philip was amazed at his driving skills. But the beautiful scenery did not last long. They were still stopped by the police. Good luck getting away from them. Driss was very calm in this situation. 200 euros, we have an escort. Then you lose again. 200 euros with escort. Close. Driss got out of the car and was immediately stopped by the police. Instead, they blamed the police for stopping them. He rapped and said there was a patient in the car, so they were forced to speed. The wheelchair in the trunk was the evidence he presented. Hearing this, Philip immediately understood. In coordination with Driss's words, he pretended to convulse. The police believed them immediately. They escorted them all the way. They sat in the car enjoying the freedom that music brought. When they arrived at the hospital, the police even called the ambulance to help them. They walked along the small country road. After a long night, Driss took Philip to a villa by the sea. Looking out at the vast ocean before him, Philip's pent-up emotions were finally released. This moment needed no words. The tears in his eyes said it all. Then Driss shaved Philip's beard, not forgetting to make him laugh. Philip knew. It was fun to spend time with Driss. Driss pushed his wheelchair to a seaside restaurant. "I won't stay for dinner." "It's okay, you don't have to eat alone. Someone will be here with you." Driss returned the Easter egg he had taken earlier. Philip was a little confused by these sudden changes. He looked around with a questioning heart, until a familiar face appeared before his eyes. It dawned on him. It turned out that this was the city that had been specially chosen for him. At this moment, he understood that what Driss had said was not without basis. Driss had not chosen to continue being with him. Instead, she had found a separate path for him. Philip smiled warmly, but hid deep gratitude. Driss waved goodbye, eyes filled with satisfaction and blessings. Driss had successfully fulfilled this wish. This is a true story. Philip is now remarried and has children. The prototype of Driss. Upday has become a business manager. To this day, they still maintain a very close friendship. Driss comes from a poor background, but is rich in spirit. Philip's body is paralyzed, but his soul is not broken. If meeting is fate, then becoming friends is the choice of both. They run in different chaotic worlds, but he couldn't break up with them. He understood what he wanted to say, but didn't dare. He could also guess what he was thinking. You can be subtle with him. Just let things be. That's the way to live and treat people.